So I had this idea. Mind you, I met Emmanuel at like a show. I met him at the ColumbiaCityTheater show, actually. So we did a show there together, and then I met him. We followed each other on Instagram for a hot minute. Didn't really talk that much. And then eventually, he hit me up. We started talking. And I remember one time I came into a live that he was doing with King. And I didn't know who King was at the time, and introduced me to him or whatever. And then we just started having a conversation about doing music together, hopped off of the Instagram live they did, and then we hopped on like a Zoom call. And I showed them the song that we did, that we released, I don't even know when, like January 2020. It's called Expensive. And so
I remember that.
yeah, so we released that, which was also produced by me. And then, I wanted to do like a group thing, and they didn't at the time, because of a variety of different reasons. I think it's difficult to get three people together who all have different creative like visions, I guess you could say. Or just like, yeah, creative freedom is a big thing for any artist, right? So you want to keep that to yourself. But then like sometime in the summer, so that was like in January, so like in June, like the beginning of summer, I brought up the idea again because they were like, we could talk about it later. And then they were on board, and we were hitting the studio like at least, I don't know, once a month, maybe from June until November of 20. I'm not going to even guess with the dates. But we started going to the studio, and I produced like 4 of the 7 tracks, because I also like I make beats, and it wasn't something that I necessarily thought I was going to be doing for the project, but I also was like, you know what, why outsource this when I could just do it, so then we did Expensive. And the other part too is that I produce Expensive, so I was like, we might as well just go with me. And so I ended up producing, some other songs like You Fake AF.
Right.
We did why do I not even remember my own songs? Pain and Pleasure, Issues, and there was one more. No, that was it. Sorry. That was it. And then 90s R&B and Pray and Moves was produced by somebody else. We couldn't by the end of it, I was like, we were all working on our own projects while we were doing this.
Yeah.
And so I didn't necessarily have the capacity to be able to produce more, but I wanted to continue to do this. And so we ended up just outsourcing it to Kid Ocean, who's on BeatStars. Shout out to Kid Ocean. And we kind of came up with this structure, because we were like, how there's 3 of us, how are we going to decide which beats to choose, and da. And what ended up happening is everyone chose their top 5, and then we got together and voted on the best one that each person chose, and that's how we came up with the last 3 songs. Yeah, and then we did our last show on, I want to say, in August. So we did our last show in August just last year, and then we went our own separate ways. And what's crazy is a lot of people who went to that show, the last K.S.E show, it was their first time seeing us together. And so like people were like, you're already breaking up, and this is like my first concert. But we knew it was coming. We already planned it. Like we knew we were going to stop in August. 2 years down the road.
Yeah.
And we also didn't want any bad blood between us, because I've seen groups time and time again. We've all seen groups time and time again that like break up and try to lie to the media and be like, everything's all good, but won't even look at each other when they're at the same award show. And so like, I didn't want that to happen. And so that's why I was like, we need to talk about like, what happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? Like, how do we make sure that we got each other? And so we just mutually agreed to go our separate ways after we released the 90s R&B music video. And since then, people still talk about it. People still stream it. It was the first time people had heard about me, because prior to doing that, I was doing record label stuff in Europe. So like primarily I like do record label work. So like writing for other artists, releasing songs with record labels. And so that was the first time people in Seattle had actually heard of me, was through that, because King and Emmanuel already had like a following here.
Right.
And so, but yeah, so we just separated, and then, like we all, we gained a really solid fan base. And so like, now we're all going different directions. But I think Emmanuel still kind of sticks to that like R&B tone. of K.S.E. King, you know, he calls his music genre transcending. So,
Yes. Yeah.
and time again, I'm just like, okay, like whatever that means. So like, but like that's how we joke with each other. Like a lot of people don't get it, but it's very dark humor. And we give each other a hard time a lot. And I obviously, as you heard, decided to go the pop route.